Hello, I'm Patrick O'Connell, and welcome to Never Is Funny, the show where I talk to funny people and hope to God they talk back. This episode, I'm talking to Gabey Lucas, who is a comic stand-up and writer based in Washington State, which, fun fact, is where I grew up. But this isn't the fun fact about Patrick's show. This is the fun fact about Gabey's show, at least for this episode. And guess what? It's a bargain bucket because there's multiple fun facts. All about her work, experience of stand-up, and most importantly, her Edinburgh Fringe show, titled A Berkshire Boar Walks into a Bar and Gets Shot in the Face. Let's snuffle these truffles! Because, truffle pigs, I think, are a thing. I don't know if that made any sense, but you know what? The girls who get it, get it. Welcome back to the show, where I talk to comedians in the know. That's right. It's never as funny. It's Never As Funny. The show is called Never As Funny. It's the name of the show, by the way. Never As Funny. That's the gist of it. The name. The show's called Never. This is like the title music. It's called Never As Funny. All right. Great. Okay, I'm ready to launch into it if you are.
Cool. Yeah, I am too. I also brought a map of San Juan Island from last weekend when I was there.
Oh, amazing. I wish this was video. I have to ask you to laboriously describe the topography. But, okay, yeah, great. So, welcome back to the show, everybody. This time I have on stand-up and comedy writer Gabey Lucas, who, according to your little fact you provided me with, is known amongst your friends and stand-up colleagues for barfing a lot.
Yep. When I was thinking of what's a unifying thing about me, it's that I don't eat before going out, even though I'm not nervous. I just barf. I'm an easy barfer. And I also play hockey, like ice hockey.
Oh, right.
And
Awesome.
I'm known between my stand-up friends and my hockey friends. They know that I'm liable at most times. I've barfed in almost every ice rink in the state.
Oh, wow. I was going to say
before, during, and
it's
after.
a pretty stressful situation to... I mean, is that not... I have to ask really dumb questions. I don't know anything about ice hockey. But I presume you're on ice skates. So when that happens, do you go flying?
Well, I've never barfed on the ice because I'm a champ. I can hold it. I think what it is it's the same thing with stand-up. Where when I'm on stage, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And it's the same. I think when you're in the middle of high octane stuff,
right,
playing, then I'm fine. It's when my brain gets a moment and my body's exhausted and my brain gets a moment to calm down and think anything. And then it's it's
right. It just goes, let's get rid of all of this.
This is a fun way to introduce me.
Oh no, it's just great. Yeah, I like most of the stories people have had have been, you're not alone in having a, well, you are alone in having a specifically vomit-related story, but that's good. At some point, I need to introduce myself in some way, because it does seem slightly unfair that I've had every guest on reveal something. But to actually talk about your actual stuff, so I'd love to get into the Berkshire Boar, your Fringe show, but to begin with, to introduce yourself, what is your sphere of things? So I mentioned you do writing and stand-up and things. How would you describe yourself?
Yeah, I think, stand-up and writer, for sure. Yeah, I, up until very recently, was a staff writer for SB Nation, which is one of the bajillion Vox subsidiaries.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but and obviously they're sports-focused, but I wrote a lot of kind of comedy sports stuff. I don't know how else to really put it, but I'm definitely those are my two things.
Yes, definitely.
My only two things.
Well, I noticed, because I did some research on you before the show, going through your website, which is a great website, by the way. I made a mental note to point that out, that it's a really nice website to look at. But yeah, you've done a few. So for sports writing, there are a couple of main things to know. So one was, I might get the name wrong. I don't know anything about sports. I mean, you can probably tell I don't exactly give off jock vibes.
Neither do I, though.
That's true. I think even just the fact that you're a stand-up, I don't think I've ever come across a stand-up before who's been an ice hockey player, that's a very interesting combo.
Yeah, there's very few. There's a handful in Canada. I know one guy in New York. I have another friend in Seattle, but he doesn't really do stand-up anymore. Right. It's a rare Venn diagram.
So when we like started emailing, we had a little like, I used to live in Washington. Are you based in Washington?
Yeah, I'm based in Seattle. I started stand-up when I lived in Vancouver, which was the first 2.5 years or so. And then I moved back down here, because this is where I'm from. Okay, awesome. You know, as if they're like really far away. Not the exact same place, but just belonging to two different countries. But yeah, so that's my whole thing now. Right, yeah, awesome. But yeah, sorry, the sports. So I think you wrote for University of Washington Dog Pound. Yeah, just UW Dog Pound, yeah. Is that their American football team? What's their whole... Yeah, so UW is the university that is 2 generations worth of being responsible for my existence. My parents met there. My dad's parents met there. Oh, right, wow. And so it's just been a thing that I was raised in. And yeah, I know that I love whenever talking about college sports to Europeans, they're always like, what the hell? But it really is, it's really funny. I think that's a really funny, I mean, I understand the reaction, but it is, the irony of that is that the college athletic history and landscape is by far the most similar to the European athletics history and landscape, like bar none. It's so much more similar than our professional thing. And people also, a lot of times people will ask, like, why is college football even a thing? And the reason is because that's literally where that sport was invented. Right. Was students. Oh, okay. The NFL is like a thing that came out of that, and it didn't exist for, 70 years. So, yeah, but so that's their whole, they have, 25 teams or whatever. I don't, we don't really cover everything. But that's just, for whatever reason, that was a thing that I was always kind of obsessed with. Yeah, that is an interesting thing, that college sports are these sports. Like, I mean, again, I'm going to ask some very naive questions, but things like... Go for it. What happens when people leave college? Do they leave the team? Is it... Yeah. Oh, right. So that's where, like, the professional world comes into play. Ah, I see. I was going to say, I have heard lots of stuff about American football players getting dementia early on, so I was going to say maybe it just lines up. Yeah. And I know, you just mentioned you're in Wales, and I know that, like, Sam Warburton over there for, like, the rugby team, I remember him a few years ago talking about similar stuff with, like, having to quit, not necessarily with CTE, but, like, with just, like, the pain of, like, living for the rest of your life after. Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, it's not great. It is a mental sport. It's why it makes me laugh when people, because, like, if you talk to, like, a rugby fan in the UK about the American football, they're all like, oh, they're all such wimps. They all have to wear armor. Like, have you seen what happens to these guys? Like, yeah, I played rugby for a little bit, and I really like rugby. Union, not league so much. I think league is boring. But I think I have big pet peeves from both the football perspective side and the rugby perspective side. The thing you get with people who know a little bit about both, but not that much, is like, football would actually be a lot safer if they just took off the helmets and the pads. And I'm like, one, the geometry and the physical dynamics of those sports because of the gameplay is such that is not true. Right. Because in rugby, you don't get a 10-meter sprinting head start to blast somebody's... The G-forces that happen in football are... I mean, there are hits in rugby that are crazy, but the G-forces in football are such that, like, you would see someone die probably within the first 5 to 10 years if we took all the... But then the other thing is, like, when you get people who don't really know about football and only know about rugby, usually from the European or like, South African Kiwi side, saying, like, yeah, they're all pussies, and I'm like, it's, again, they're 2 different sports, and... Neither of those are true. Yeah. It would if you got hit by most of, and again, a lot of it is just the dynamics of the geometry and the gameplay. Yeah. But on the other side, it really pisses me off the way that they have taught how to tackle in football for decades and decades, and they're getting better, but still rugby tackling is superior, and there's literally no advantage safety or effectiveness wise. This is so great. This is exactly why people tuned in to this, is to listen to us talk about
I was just thinking, I mean, I'm fast. This is the most information I've internalized about American football, or probably any sport ever in general, really. I feel incredibly enlightened. This does tend to happen because obviously most people who do comedy have done various other things simultaneously. So I think the first episode of this series, I had a guest, Derek Mitchell, and I locked in on his like part-time career of copywriting he did, and took up about 30 minutes of his time talking about that just because I wanted to know. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's where most of my money comes from, is copywriting as well.
Yes.
But it's really boring, and I don't want to talk about it.
That's totally fair.
It would be so boring.
I got that impression from talking to copywriters before. But yes, okay, so the other sport thing that I was curious about was that I didn't get a chance to look into much of it in detail, but from your website, you've done this sort of like, you described it as kind of Ted Lasso-esque, fictionalized history of an American football team.
Baseball, yeah.
Baseball, that's it. That's close.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's really cool. Would you be able to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that I think actually is much more interesting and definitely relevant. Like, people who are listening to this are actually going to hopefully would be much more interested in this project than like my other random sports.
Berkshire Boar, it's a story on that site, right?
Yeah, that's actually where the title for my show came from. It was a working title based on a title of one of the chapters for this thing, which, albeit it was changed a little bit. The chapter title was a pig walks into a bar and gets shot in the face. But yeah, so essentially what it is an old-timey, it's a historical comedy about a fictional old-timey Cascadian Pacific Northwest baseball league.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I think everyone's come across this, like, these, essentially, that old-timey sports are insane.
Right.
Like, they were so nuts. Everyone was, like, drunk all the time and, like, never ate a vegetable. And half the, teams were funded by the mob, like. And this project actually came out of the SB Nation stuff because it doesn't matter. It was like a round table that me and a guy hijacked to talk about this fictional baseball team that we created called the Everett Flabbergasters.
Yes.
Which is what it's called. And it's on hiatus, has been on hiatus for the last few months as I've been working on the Fringe. I thought I'd be able to do both at the same time. I couldn't.
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
Yeah. But, essentially, I just started writing about this. It's just, like, such a perfect environment for comedy and also, like, character developing these characters. Like, I don't know if you've read any of it, but if there is one main character, it'd be Stabby Mervang.
Yes, I saw the picture that I was drawn to it because of the little artwork of the seagull saying, I don't remember exactly what he said. Something like, I'll fucking stab you if you call it Pike's Place.
Yeah, I think it was, say Pike's Place one more time, motherfucker. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I just drew those on Procreate, all the...
Oh, really? You made they're adorable. I love them.
Yeah, you can tell because some of them are better than others. You can tell the ones where I was like, had time and was having fun drawing them. And then you can tell the ones where I finished the chapter and then really had to, was like, shit, now I have to draw a whole thing from scratch for the cover art. But I think there's just like so many, in the way that like modern sports are just like so corporate and so blasted with, just so blown up all out of the place.
Yeah.
Old-timey sports 130 years ago are so nuts. Like in every aspect of how, whether it's individual players, like Babe Ruth, for example, was like, would come to games still drunk from the next night, leaving behind like 3 of his side bitches at the motel or whatever. Like, or like, I think it was the White Sox. I don't remember. There's all this, especially baseball. I think baseball is like the perfect old-timey. Yeah. I imagine like association football, soccer is similar, but the history of how stupid it was in the best ways. And you also had, I think, these clubs popped up and represented their communities in ways that were, I think, more accurate both with the quirks and just in their kind of organic becoming. So that's, I think, a lot of, and also the names of teams back then were fun and weird in ways that they're not now.
So your fictional one is the Everett Flabbergasters.
Yeah, well, they're all fictional.
No, but I mean, like, the real team names from that time period. Mm-hmm. Were there any ones that are particularly weird that you, like, remember?
Oh, there was some. I did look up, because I came up with a handful of names, like, just because related to the history and what was going on there at the time. Yeah. But also just because they're all weird. But I definitely did look up, like, for, like, the Pacific Coast League and some of the Japanese teams as well.
Oh, right.
That's another thing, is you had a lot of clubs popping out from, like, kind of like with, like, London Irish, London Welsh,
right, yeah.
Kind of these things where you had, like, the Hebrew Day School and, like, Japanese Tacoma, like, all these different weird little things. And that's actually something that when I've been writing these, I thought it was going to be really easy, because I thought I would just continuously blurt out all this crap, which that I can do in 5 minutes, and it's really fun. And then I've had but because of how my brain works, and, like, I know talking about neurodivergence and ADHD and hyperfixation is, like, kind of cliche now, but
I mean,
whatever.
Especially in comedy, but half of us have it, so
yeah. But, like, I couldn't not go down these rabbit holes of, like, all these details on what would have been the case for X neighborhood with the team in 1906.
Yes. Yeah.
Or, like, so for example, there's one team named the Ballard Pukey Swedes, which is actually, Pukey Swedes is, like, a running phrase in my family, because we're Norwegian and it's been passed down for, like, 6 generations. Wow. Okay. Which is where so I ended up doing all this research on, like, the annexation of this. It's now a neighborhood in Seattle. It was a separate city. And how their sewer system didn't work. And actually got into a lot of the history of also, like, really not great things in the city, like redlining, and which is not something that I knew that, but I ended up going really deep down that rabbit hole, specifically with Asian Americans. And so that's kind of how that, for example, this team, the details of that, I wasn't planning on going that far down. But then as I'm writing something, you think of one detail, and then you're like, well, now I have to spend 4 hours researching, like, how long of a walk would it be from the past Nihon Mochi, which is, like, Japan down, for some of those characters to be able to come up and play with this team. And I don't even remember what your question was, but point being, it's a really stupid, fun setting.
Oh, definitely.
And the details make it hard for me to churn them out as fast as I wish I could.
That's fantastic, though, going down those.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to be Googling a lot of this stuff after, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, what was obviously, the story of I say obviously, we haven't really mentioned it yet. The story of the pig war that we all know. I happened to know about, because I've been to the place where it happened as a kid, but that's a real thing. Mm-hmm. How did that fit into your Everett Flabbergasters lore documentation? And how did that lead to your set?
Yeah, so essentially, I think one of the things I like about old school sports stuff is that you had these teams from cities that were smaller than now, and just these kind of random communities. And so when I was coming up with, like, where would all the teams in this league be, there was a lot of smaller areas, and one of them was Victoria, which is the capital of BC. And then also across, if you kind of go due east from there, on the American side in Washington, there's Bellingham. And I think what it was when I got to chapter 4 or 5, which was a pig walks into a bar and gets shot in the face. And by then I had already kind of established, like, here's all these teams that hate each other. And so I'm like, okay, it's kind of boring to be like, here's another 2 teams that hate each other, because, like, you can only do that for so long before it becomes kind of stale as a narrative. And so I was like, what if... Oh, and Victoria and Bellingham were 2 places that I decided had teams. And I think I had named Bellingham the Pig Punchers initially because I figured, like, they're pretty close to this island. Like, why not? That could be their name. Yeah. And then I was like, what if these two teams came out of that historical period and they were like buddies because of it? Because essentially what happened, and this is probably a pretty good transition into my show actually.
Oh, excellent.
Is that there's an archipelago of islands today, some of which belong to Canada and some of which are American on the British Columbia and then Washington side. And the ones that are today American, the farthest west one was, I mean, all of them were disputed, but essentially it was this one that was particularly disputed because the Treaty of Oregon, which is where the Imperial British Hudson's Bay Company and the extremely racist Manifest Destiny,
oh shit, yeah,
we're going to take over the whole continent, Americans,
yeah,
were like trying to divvy up this whole continent, essentially. And the phrasing for it essentially said, go the west from the 49th parallel, then you hit the channel and go south.
Okay.
But the issue is that the channel isn't clear.
Right.
And it was interpreted in different ways. And so there was this whole dispute that turned into almost a huge war, which is obviously a lot of the contents of my show.
Yes.
But then what happened is there was, after they got over that initial hump of whether to shoot each other to death, they had a 12-year joint occupation while they were trying to figure out who got this island. 12 years. And in that period of time, this was during the 1860s to 1872.
Yeah.
And during that period of time, it was like 100 British soldiers, 100 American soldiers, and then a bunch of civilians as well. And the two camps ended up kind of like being really good buddies.
Oh, right.
And yeah, so they were kind of just both, while Britain was off taking over the world and the US was off getting decimated in a civil war, you had these like couple companies out here that were just having a really great time. And one of those things involved like they would celebrate each other's holidays. Like even the British would come over to the American camp for the 4th of July.
Oh, that's cute.
And we would celebrate like Victoria's birthday with you guys. Right. So I figured like it would make sense in that scenario. Like that two different sporting teams would pop up and play whatever against each other. And then so I had this idea that like, what if they did that and they had like a decade of being buddies and playing baseball together? And then after the commission decided this was an American island.
Yeah.
And so they disbanded, got sent back to where they were originally from, in this case, Victoria and Bellingham. And then they just continued being clubs there. Right. But they were still buddies because of that shared history. So that was just kind of a thing that I thought was quite entertaining to write about. Because I think that whole incident is such a silly
definitely
part of history. And it's so hyper-local that it's kind of always been in the back of my head. And I won't lie that, like, definitely writing that chapter, it wasn't the first time I've written something about this.
Right.
But it did kind of put that in the back of my head when I was thinking, like, how do I want to structure this Fringe show? Definitely writing that chapter did. I think it made it kind of fresh in my head, and it also made it just something that I found especially compelling with the timing of everything.
Right, definitely. So when you said it was something that helped structure the Fringe show, was, like, timeline-wise, had you already decided to go to Fringe and do a show, and then you're like, oh, like, later you kind of added in the pick war stuff, or was it right from the start, this was your show?
Yeah. So I was already thinking that I wanted to do Fringe this year, last summer, or at least I was thinking, like, I want to do it in the next few years. And then last summer I went to a tour in the Balkans.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because a friend of mine she's American, but she's based in Germany. She's a comedian.
Oh, cool.
Basically a friend of hers who she met at Boom Chicago in Amsterdam.
Yes.
He puts on a festival in Macedonia every year. And so blah, blah, blah. I did that. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the Fringe after on my way back for like a week and just check it out and, get my sense of how everything kind of ticks. And I definitely came away from that being like, okay, I feel confident that I want to do this next year, like, so this year. But my, a huge takeaway, I mean, I knew this before going there, but it was especially hammered home being there, just the scale of it.
Right.
Because it's something I think where, like, intellectually you can understand this is the biggest performing arts festival in the world. It's the third largest ticketed event in the world after the Olympics and the World Cup, which is insane.
Yeah.
So you can understand that, but until you really see and experience the scale of it and you're immersed in that, I don't think it's really possible to comprehend totally.
Yeah.
And so coming out of there, especially not being UK based, so my name doesn't have any recognition. No one's going to come see me based on like, here's this person doing an hour of jokes. Like, oh, you mean like the 1,000 other people?
Yeah. I was going to say, I'm from the UK and I went with a uni sketch troupe and we had the same issue, so I wouldn't feel too bad.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's hard being British even, and then you add the handicap.
Yes,
yeah, just in general. No. Yeah, like even if you're coming from the UK and you have any name recognition or not, like it's hard for anybody. And then you add coming in from somewhere that isn't there, you have no name recognition, this is your first Fringe.
Oh, definitely.
So I recognize, immediately I'm like, okay, well, I'm obviously working at a pretty huge disadvantage, especially because we don't have awards here like you guys do. We don't have awards. We don't have like BBC radio for... Yes. There's people I know in the UK who have like TV appearances or radio appearances or have written stuff for, BBC Comedy or Research for Dave or whatever, that like they totally deserve it. They're really good. But like the comedians I know of that level or much above even here, like that's not a thing. Right. Unless you're like a writer for late night, unless you are I see. Yeah. In New York or LA. And so there's really nothing to be like, no, trust me, I've been validated by XYZ. I'm good. Come see it. So I'm thinking like, okay, what can I do to make this show not just here's another motherfucker with an hour of jokes? And there was a few things that I kept going through in my head. One of them was something about old-timey baseball, whatever. But as you can tell by the way I just said that, I didn't really ever think of a way to develop that any further. And so this pig war thing kept coming into my brain as like, what if I was trying to do an hour, but I couldn't? Yeah. Because I kept getting distracted by this whole thing. And especially because it is so insane. Like I'm especially realizing now, like I genuinely could do an hour on just the pig war. And definitely. Who knows, maybe I'll do that in the future. Because I've had to cut out so much of it.
Oh, that must be tough. Cutting stuff out of when you're writing sets and things is already, the whole like killing your darling thing, whatever, is already tough. But when it's, when you're talking about something historical that you're passionate about, that I would have found that brutal to have to work out what I could cut. Yeah.
I don't know if I'd ever say I'm passionate about it because I don't think anybody is. I think it's so insane. I think extremely curious. Yes. That's a better phrase. And by the, what it tells us about humanity's non sequiturs. Yes. But yeah, I totally know what you mean. There's so many details that are what make it extra funny that I had to cut out, or what I think add context. There's this one thing where the British and American boundary commissioners and surveyors for both countries, they had been there for like years before this all popped off, and they were like kind of buddies, and they would always like find each other just sailing around the Salish Sea and just have tea and hang out, and then as this whole conflict goes around, it feels like a Meg Ryan Tom Hanks thing where like it was Archibald Campbell was the American, and I think it was Isaac Prevost, and they like Campbell would find out, he was always the last to know, like, shit's going down, oh, there's some development, and he's like, what's going on? And then Prevost would find out before him. I'd come over and be like, you son of a bitch, you lied to me. And he's like, I don't know. And like, that's brilliant. There was so many little details like that I had to cut out, which I don't know, maybe I will one day do a full hour on just that. Definitely. But essentially it was, it's not a marketing thing, but it's just something that I think I was self-aware enough to recognize that I need some angle. Yes. That goes further. And also I don't want the angle to be talking about myself, because there's a lot of angles that are talking about ourselves or our neuroses or our anxieties or our tragedies, personal journeys, that I'm like, there's a lot of those that are really great, but I don't have any personal angle that I'm that interested in exploring there. Yeah, definitely. Or that I think would stand out in any way. So I went this direction. That's good.
Also, I think sometimes I start automatic because I'm like interested in what the other person's saying, and I start automatically being like, yeah, definitely, because I'm just curious, but I want to like, give response. And every so often, like just then, you're like, yeah, I don't know if it'd be that interesting for me to personally explore myself. And then, yeah, I fully agree. I wouldn't give a shit if you did that either.
You're like, yeah, you shouldn't talk about it. Yeah.
So we're about to hit the middle section of the show. And as for the song you'd like me to go with, give me a choice between 99 Love Balloons or End of the World by R.E.M. I'm very tempted by Love Balloons because, I haven't mentioned this to you yet, but because of like, so I originally when this started out as like a local radio show at my uni, and at that point I could just play music in the middle. But now because of copyright stuff, most of the time I can't just play a song. So I let the guest pick one, and then I find some stock music I like, and I just have a crack at delivering it in some kind of bizarre way. So the idea of attempting the full German lyrics is very tantalizing to me. So I think that will be the one I'm going to go with.
Absolutely do that. And the full German one is the best version too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm biased because I speak German, but...
Do you? Oh, wow.
Yeah. Although it's one of those things where like every time, when you go a couple years without being there, then it kind of, you have to like rejigger it for a day or two when you're back.
I was going to say, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you know what the German for a Berkshire Boar walks into a bar and gets shot in the face would be?
Yeah. Oof.
Berkshire Boar might not be on the top of your head.
Berkshire Schwein. Läuft oder geht. Now I have to just think about it in English. It's such a long title. Wait, walks into a bar. Geht in einem... Oof.
I won't blame you.
I mean, ja. Und wird im Gesicht geschissen.
Brilliant. I mean, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
I respect you fully committing to work it out, because you could have just said anything, to be honest, and I would have.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never thought about that before. What's the past tense of is it schießen, geschossen?
What's schust?
Schießen, if I remember it correctly. Although I don't have a habit of talking about getting shot all the time in German, so yes, schießen past tense is, I believe, geschossen. Shot. No, not God. No. Oh shit. Okay. I've been shot. Let's look that up.
I like the idea of, I don't know, if
geschossen. Yeah.
If you're a tourist and you arrive in Germany and you get shot in the street and you quickly, desperately go on Google Translate. I have been shot.
Ja, ich bin im Gesicht geschossen worden. Yeah. How did we start talking about that? Oh, right, because of Nina.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Nina. Yeah, so I'm going to go for that, and that's coming. Here it comes. All right, welcome to the middle section of the show. Now, as you will all know by now, I'm not one to shy from a challenge. Challenges shy from me. They lie shivering and whimpering at my feet, begging for a quarter, but I shall give them none. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. I'm about to deliver 99 love balloons in perfect German. Auf Wiedersehen, motherfucker. Hast du etwas Zeit für mich? Dann sing ich ein Lied für dich. Von 99 love balloons. Auf ihrem. Babe, what the hell? I did tell you I was recording right now. I'm busy. What? Who the fuck are you? How did you get in my...
Olaf Scholz lässt grüßen.
Ah! Fucking... Ow! Ich wurde angeschossen! And wow, we're back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. I delivered that like a children's presenter.
The Charlotte Ritchie Taskmaster children's show.
Yes! That's a very good deep cut reference.
Oh, God, I love her so much.
Yeah.
Her and Mel Goodrich should have a children's show that they present together.
That would be perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it would.
Okay, I gotta my brain's drifting off to that. I gotta bring it back. This is the risk of getting an ADHD. I say getting is my idea to host a podcast. Is that for the first 15 minutes getting you to explain American football to me. Now I'm daydreaming about Charlotte Ritchie, Mel Gildrake's children's show.
Yeah, between the two of us, we're extremely awful at keeping this whole thing on track.
But speaking of on track, I wanted to. So you talked a little bit about the idea of going to Fringe and seeing in person, realizing how big and almost like intimidating it is. How are you feeling about the full process of like outside of just doing the show, but the things of like finding accommodation and flyering and I don't know, networking and things? Do you feel like confident about that?
Yeah, I think most of the heavy lifting logistically is over.
Right.
So that, I mean, I think the most stressful part of this was like January, February.
Right.
Because then it's like apply to venues, or in the Stands case, just like talk to them. Because not all of them, not all the venues are applications. And then get, oh shit, we have to find somewhere to live. Oh my God, freak out. So the reason I'm with Gilded is because it didn't even occur to me to apply to one of the big four because I was like, well, I'm a nobody, so why would...
Right.
You look at like the Pleasances lineup every year and it's like everyone who's like super up and coming or already established. And I'm like, well, we've already discussed that I have done stand-up in the UK before, but I'm not based there. I don't have any following. So I actually panic applied to Gilded, but at like the first week of February because I hadn't heard back from anyone else. And then they within like 4 days, one of their producers followed me on Instagram and I was like, okay, wait a minute. If I have a shot here and not like with Laughing Horse, what the hell is going on, man?
That's great. So can I ask to clarify I was thinking about lying and saying for the listeners, because in theory I should know, but I don't. So you're talking about like Gilded and Laughing Horse, the big four. What are these things that you're applying for here? Yeah.
So I don't know, you mentioned that you with your uni troupe had done Fringe before.
Yes.
What venue were you at, by the way?
I think it's called the Space UK.
Space?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't really know many stand-up shows. Like, there's plenty of solo shows there, but... So I feel like the Space is more like sketch, comedy theater, maybe.
Oh, I see. So these are Gilded, Laughing... These are the venues you're applying for.
Yeah, so I think I applied to like 6 total.
Yeah. Or
like applied or talked to for the non-application ones. But yeah, so yeah, I guess for someone who's listening who's not like in the weeds of the Fringe world, and this is something, for example, this kind of thing is something that I don't know how I would navigate this had I not been there last year. Yeah, you have like the big 4 venues of the Pleasance, Gilded Balloon, Assembly, and Underbelly. And then like the 2 main like free organizations, which are Laughing Horse and PBH. And then, a bajillion others in between. Yeah, I'm trying to think of who all I applied to. I know I applied to Hoot Nannies. Never heard back from them. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I figured I was like going for a free show because, or like a pay what you want show. Oh, and Just the Tonic.
Yes, Just the Tonic.
Because I figured I was like, well, like I'm not, like I'm not fancy or high status or anything. So like, why would one of the important venues go for me? And it turns out the reason why they would is because I have good tape and a good pitch.
Yes, right.
But because I am good at what I do. Like I'm.
Whoa, arrogance! You gotta remember this is a British podcast. You can't.
Dude, no, I hate people who like get all up, like puff their chest up about stand up. I'm like, go away, you idiots. But I've been doing this for 9 years. I'm like.
Oh, definitely.
There's plenty of times where I'm minus 2 years in COVID, I suppose, but I think I'm finally at a place where I'm like comfortable admitting that I don't suck.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, I think it's earned in this profession because everyone I speak to, even when I listen to like I listen to a lot of podcasts interviewing comedians, like, celebrity level comedians, and even they are talking about how they're dealing with, imposter syndrome, or whether it's like, oh, is this a worthy thing? Am I really good at this? So I think it's very...
Don't worry, I still feel that way.
Oh, great. That's good.
At the same time.
Company. But it's...
Yeah.
I think it's definitely earned to... I don't think there's much point in doing over-modesting... Over-modestizing? I'm just going to go with it. Over-modestizing.
Yeah, what is the word?
Something where it's already, everybody's already under so much pressure and putting stuff on themselves. You are good at what you do. You're going to the Fringe. So you might as well just say that.
Yeah, I think, not that you have to be good to go to the Fringe. When I was talking with my friend who in Germany when we were on tour together, she was talking about she's gotten so much better leaving the US because there is this culture there in Europe and in the UK and Ireland of developing your hour, which we don't have. Like, you just kind of slowly build up until you can do an hour, but you don't have your show. You just are you, and you do a set that's an hour to headline or whatever. And she was talking about it. She's like, oh, I've seen plenty of people do an hour that should not be doing an hour. But yeah, I don't think I'm like the tits or like anything. Like, I don't think I'm hot shit. Like, I don't think I'm special. And there's plenty of times where I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? Why am I? Most of that, though, a lot of that is when you see stuff that you're rejected from, because that's how American festivals are. You apply, you generally get rejected. Right. Which I don't mind getting rejected. I'm used to getting rejected. I've gotten rejected a bajillion times. But then you see someone make it who's been doing it for a year and a half, and you're like, I've never seen them be good. And then that's when you get in your brain. So there's definitely, I have so many things of, what am I doing? Like, have I spent all this time doing this and I'm not even good? And the thing that I think I'm hearing that is people laughing at me and me having a good set. What if my senses are just bad and I'm just don't actually know what reality is? So really what it is this whole weird Sisyphean quest to try to triangulate reality based on the opportunities you are or are not getting versus what you think you are experiencing on stage. And then trying to be like, well, if those don't match up, then which one wins out? Right. But other than that, I don't think I'm important or special or fancy or deserving of anything in a way that, I'll put it this way. I'm very British about this whole thing, but I'm comfortable being like, okay, I'm pretty, I'm pretty, I don't suck.
Yeah. That's good.
As much as I've, did a show we've all done shows where we're like, oh God, that sucked. But I think I'm fine.
Oh, definitely. I mean, speaking of that, how has it been? So I know you've been doing some shows so far in your ends, like around Seattle, of a Berkshire Boar. How's it been going so far? Is it mostly good? Have you had any ones where it's like, oh, I got to work on this a lot? Or has it been mostly good so far?
Yeah, it's been very productive. And I was pretty surprised, actually, the first full preview I did, that I was like, oh, okay, went much better than I was expecting. Like, I thought there would be there are still kinks to work out. But, I mean, the issue with, this show, the issue, quote unquote, of this show, and also the North American stand-up infrastructure and culture is because, like I alluded to earlier, we don't have that culture of stand-up going through Fringe festivals where you develop your show and you go there and you do your show. Our festivals are compilation lineups that are set by the producers. So we also don't have this culture within our stand-up world, other than to an extent in LA and New York, if somebody is preparing for an album or a special, going around and that this is true of anywhere. If you're preparing for an album or a special, people will go around and get on other people's shows doing an hour headlining that to work that out. But we don't have a culture or infrastructure or an ingrained thing of knowing, for example, what a whip is. Right. And being like, hey, I'm running 20 of these work in progress shows around the area where I'm in a month. Right. So about a little bit over 2 weeks ago was my first full hour preview. Versus I know I have friends in the UK who've been running a preview of their show, a work in progress of their show, many, many times a month for the last year. And so the thing with this show that I didn't really grasp when I first came up with the idea of hey, what if I was doing my hour of stand-up, but I just kept getting sidetracked and talking about this episode, was that when I thought of that and decided this is what I was going to do, I didn't realize how ambitious the mechanics of that were. Right. And now we're kind of getting into the minutia nerd talk, but the issue with it is that I'd guess roughly about 20, cumulatively, probably about 20 25 minutes
Okay.
or so of the show. Probably about 40% of the show is this whole episode. And you can't, if I'm working on something that is at the 20-minute or the 18-minute mark, I can't go to an open mic where it's 3 minutes, where there's 15 minutes of backstory to get to this 3 minutes, that all those things are stacking on top of each other. And so it was about 2 or 3 weeks before my first preview, probably about 2 weeks, where it really started to hit me that I was like, oh, this is jumping into the deep end immediately.
Right, yeah.
Because I had gotten a handful of stuff down from this whole saga, and there was also some other like specific weird kind of material nights where I was able to work on stuff that would then be inserted later on into this material.
Yeah.
But the way that it stacks on top of each other is like you're jumping into the deep end when you're doing the hour the first time. And then also, unlike a show where if I'm just doing an hour of my jokes.
Yeah.
If you like say something slips your mind at minute 11,
right,
you aren't going to be screwed by that at minute 48. Versus for this, if I leave out accidentally, for example, forget to introduce Charles Griffin, for example, the owner of the pig who gets killed.
Right.
Oh, whoops, spoilers. By the time I get to minute 34 or so,
right,
there's like a line about him, or there's like this, like not even a line, but like there's this connective tissue from point A to point B.
Yeah.
That like you have to get it right or you're screwed.
God, that's intimidating.
Yeah, and I have fewer instances where we can like run that hour to get it already. Luckily, I don't know if I lucked out or if it was my own skill. I think it was a little bit of both.
Right.
Where like literally 3 days before my first preview, 2 days even, I was like still like getting the mechanics of how the set was going to work down. And I'm like looking at this and I'm like, oh my God, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
But luckily it worked out kind of. I don't know if you have watched Arrested Development or if any of your listeners have.
I would imagine some of my listeners have. It's on my list of endless things I need to watch.
I've watched it, and this is like a conservative estimate, like 20 times, but there's like a running joke or a running line in that was like, well, that was a freebie, and that's really how I felt about that first.
Yeah.
How I hear a kitten on your side.
I was going to say, I was wondering if it would come through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. Are you able to hold that
No,
thought
I love cats. Don't bring him here. He can be the star.
I'll introduce her to you. Come on.
Hi, buddy. Yeah, that's a good boy.
This is my sister's cat. Her name's Cookie.
Hi, Cookie.
She insists on coming into this room a lot to be let out, and I'm not sure why, because it's the one room in the house where windows don't open. But
hi, Cookie. She looks like she is not enjoying it. Bye, kitty.
Let's get a little impromptu guest star.
I hope that we don't fully cut her out from the final recording.
Oh, no.
Because I love a cat meow.
I'm keeping. I think that might be my promo clip.
Yeah. I will say, though, sorry, just to finish up the thought about the previews and stuff. Yeah, I had my first preview was in Seattle. My second preview was actually this last weekend, the last weekend of June, on San Juan Island, which is where this whole thing happened. And that went really well, and in a way that I was really excited to do it there.
Yeah, of course.
Partially because the venue I was working with was just really awesome, and they like did all the work to market it for me.
Right.
and it like sold quite well. But I was a little bit anxious about it simply because I'm like, if these people don't like it.
Right, yeah.
Like, they're the ones who, if they approve, you're golden, and if they don't, like, then you kind of start to sweat. And that was one of the most fun shows I've done in genuinely years. I had a friend opening for me, Rachel Afjay, who's usually I would be opening for her. She's fantastic. Everybody who's listening to this, find her on Instagram and tell her to come to the UK.
Yes, definitely. What was that? Rachel, what's her?
Afjay?
Rachel Afjay.
Yeah, AFLEJE. For the longest time, it's her husband's a comedian, and before they were married, when I met him for like a year or two, I thought it was pronounced Aflehe or something.
That's pretty good. I like that. Yeah, I'll track it out.
Yeah, she's really funny.
Link to her in the show notes.
Yes, please do.
But yeah, that's great. I mean, Yeah, I was thinking as you were saying that, that's the ultimate test of how it's going to go, right in the whole location of the show. What is, I mean, you said it was a good venue for it. Are you just on stage with a microphone? Do you have like a screen of anything, or is it all you?
Yeah, it's just me.
Right.
Yeah, so really fundamentally, like, I do want to make it clear that this is a stand-up show. Like, even the stuff that's about this whole thing is still just stand-up. It's just stand-up about a very specific thing. Yeah. I have some friends who, for example, Andrew Frank, who they're doing their third Fringe this year, and they have multiple shows actually, and one of them is a lot more ambitious with like lighting, sound cues, background, like all this stuff.
Right. I
personally, at least at this point, am not interested in that because the whole reason I was attracted to stand-up is it's like, you know, I did a lot of other creative or comedy stuff previously when I was younger, and then there's so many factors that I just want to strip away because I don't want to have to depend on anything that isn't as reliable. Like, you know, if I screw up and it's just me, then that's the only thing I have to worry about is myself. And so that's why I was like, I don't want music, I don't want lighting, cues, sound stuff. Like, I just want to be able to get up there and do that. I do think it would be fun in the future to do like if I ever did do an hour that was just about this whole event, then maybe I would have like a lecture style,
right? Yeah,
like laser pointer backdrop or something. But
yeah, definitely. I mean, especially as you know, with Fringe, you're traveling such a long distance and pulling up to a different venue. I mean, I assume with tech, are they providing that there if it was something you needed?
Yeah. Well, I still need somebody to like essentially just sit there and hang out and then turn on the outro music.
Yeah. Right.
But I think Gilda does provide a tech if you want to, but I've been talking to a couple people about teching my show because it's just easier to have your own person and just coordinate directly with them. So. Oh,
definitely.
But I've been telling them, I'm like, straight up, like, you're really just hanging out for an hour and like hitting play, hitting the intro music, turning it down, hitting the outro music, letting REM play for 5 minutes, and then we have to get out of there.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, in comparison, last year I spoke to a stand-up who's also coming to Fringe, Alex Franklin. The great stand-up, and their show is they do use a lot of tech. I think they were talking about, they have quite a few in this one. They were talking about one they did previously, which I think, I don't remember exactly how many it was, but it was something like 450 cues or something like that.
That's nuts. I'm so impressed with people who can do that and pull that off really well. I can't.
Yeah, it would be incredibly stressful. But yeah, no, I think that definitely makes sense. I'm curious about, so as you said, it's like quite domino-y in that there's lots of context for stuff later on, earlier on.
That's a good way of putting it. I'm going to steal that.
I've been inventing a lot of words this time around. But is it very written, for lack of a better word? Like, how much improvisation is there in it?
Yeah. I mean, the stand-up, it's the non-pig related stand-up is all done. I mean, you know, I'm not going to say I won't riff if something comes up, but like,
yeah,
I will say as far as the writing process, and I think it's really interesting listening to stand-ups talk about this because we are so varied.
Yes.
Some people will write up like a full-ass script, and I don't do that. But I do, if I'm doing, for example, I don't know, minute 20 through 35, which is pretty much just non-pig related stand-up. Like that, I know every beat and every transition and everything. But I don't have it written down necessarily. So if you mean like literally, is it written down? No, I have kind of a little flow chart actually. I think it's interesting seeing how people do that. But the pig stuff is a little bit more free flowing, but it's still, I think part of that is just a symptom of, like I talked about earlier, of especially for the later half of the pig material being in effect just newer. So it's like I know it, but there is still a little bit more fluidity. But there is, especially kind of when it gets most climactic, there is a lot of, so far anyway, and I think this will stay somewhat the same, there's a lot of, I guess, potential variation for how it is kind of presented or phrased, just because you're going so much of it's just like boom, boom, boom,
Right.
boom, 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 boom. and I realize the way that I'm talking about this might not make any sense if you haven't seen the show.
Well, all the more enticing to come and see it then.
Exactly. Yes. You'll be so tortured by not knowing what the hell I'm talking about. But I think that will be interesting, though, to see, like, from the start, from, like, July 31st is my first preview.
Yeah.
Or my first, I think I have, like, 2 or 3 shows that are technically considered previews. And then my last show is the 26th. Yeah, which is my sister's birthday.
Oh, great.
Sorry I won't be there. But yeah, I think it will be interesting to see from that point A to point B, 31st to the 26th, like how that changes what I just said.
Right.
Because even just from when I was like conceptualizing the phrasing for the latter parts that I hadn't gotten so much to work on to the first preview, and then from the first preview to the second preview, like I feel like a lot more has gotten kind of not set in stone, but felt more sturdy and solid
Okay.
in its place and in how it's phrased and framed. So I'm sure that will happen over the month of August as well.
Right, yes.
Yeah. That being said, I think it's still gonna be a little bit more fluid than the whole stand-up thing. But there's definitely lines, though, and beats in there that are, like, very integral, and, like, there's, like, some lines that are significant punchlines that I'm not...
Right.
And not only punchlines, but are, like, connective tissue
Yes.
of introducing a concept or a person or whatever. And that's when I was talking about being pleasantly surprised by some of the preview stuff. A lot of that is there being these connective tissue, like, funny lines that I was intending to be funny, but also primarily their purpose was to introduce X or whatever that hit really hard. It's that kind of thing that's like,
Right.
well, that was a freebie. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'm going to be thinking about that question the whole month.
Head towards wrapping things up, I guess. What would be... So, are you going to be... Assume you're flyering for it while you're there?
Yeah, I'll definitely be flying. I think I might have some creative costume or something to look out for. I don't know.
Oh, brilliant.
Maybe pig related.
That's good. What's your, like, when you're passing people on the street, trying to head them out, what's your, like, the pitch you have for, like, come and see the show?
I think mainly the way that I'm framing it is, like, this is not a show about, and then going off on this tangent about the pig war. Like, This is not a show. Did you hear that? This is what this show's about? That's not. Whoever told you that is lying to you. This is a stand-up show.
That's good.
And then I actually have my friend Timmy Booth, he's doing his debut too for his show Timmy Booth Manhole, which you should also go see. I think I might just blame everything on him and be like, did Timmy tell you that? He's a liar.
That's good.
And or be like, I don't know, I'm still thinking of some other framings. Because, yeah, like what we talked about, being like, want to see a comedy show? Like, oh, do you have anything specific? No? Okay, bye. Isn't going to work for me anyway. So.
That's good. You could always target higher if you felt like it. I don't know, just start being like, did James Acaster tell you this show is about that? Yeah, well, he's wrong. He's lying to you.
Yeah. Frank Skinner told you what? He's a lying bitch. Frank Skinner kind of looks like what my grandpa used to look like. So I've always kind of liked him for that.
That's brilliant. I thought you could just say Frank Skinner kind of looks like a Berkshire boy.
Oh my god. No. He does kind of have a cute little, like, pig nose.
That's good.
In a good way. There's no way to say that without sounding like it's massively insulting.
No, that's cute. I'm going to verify that afterwards. That's right. It's time for everybody's favorite game, the British Celebrity Comedian Facial Feature Fact Check. Now, we need to check if Frank Skinner's nose does in fact look pig-like in a cute, non-derogatory way. Now, since this is a podcast and thus audio only, I've converted an image of Frank Skinner into an audio file. I don't want to risk making any definitive statements myself, so I'll let you, the listener, that's you, find out for yourself. Here is Frank Skinner's face. Does it sound like a pig to you? Yeah, so as we draw to a close on the Zoom call as well, this is the part where I'd like to play a sample of your work, which I'll put in after. But is there anything specific you'd like me to use?
You want me to just send you a link of like some tape?
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, so here comes, I'm about to insert a sample of the wonderful Gabey Lucas's work right now. And here it comes.
So we have some people who have nieces and nephews in here. Do we have any dog people here tonight? Yeah, they always get a bigger cheer. I do love dogs. Both my lock screen and my wallpaper on my phone, 2 photos of dogs, neither of which belong to me. But the thing with dog people is like, you either spend $2,000 on this beautiful purebred that can trace its lineage back to Louis III because you're a pretentious douchebag, or you spend a nickel on a 3-legged 13-year-old mutt dying of cancer, and then slap a "Who Saved Who" sticker on the back of your Subaru because you're a self-righteous douchebag. And like, first off, it's who saved whom, asshole. If you're gonna be a condescending bitch about it, at least be right. I did that joke in England, and you would not believe how much the English appreciate proper English grammar. Like, I was offended at how much they like it. I'm like, you think you're better than us? Just because you get that joke. Shut up, don't laugh at me. And that's why I'm going back to the United Kingdom. I do. So yeah, dogs are. Yeah, but you guys didn't think you were gonna hear such edgy material. Dogs. Have you guys though ever? You ever had like a cat fall asleep on your arm and you're like, this is my 127 hours. Oh no. Time to break out the chop saw, bitch. But like, I don't have a chop saw, so I'll just use like a takeout plastic knife. I know I wouldn't survive if I was in that position, if I'm like hiking and my arm gets trapped by a boulder. Like, I couldn't James Franco it, if you will, because like, I'm kind of smart, but I'm really stupid, and so I would eventually realize, like, the only way out is to cut off my arm. But what I would not think through is, like, I would get through cutting off my arm and then realize that I just cut it off below the boulder. And just be like, oh, measure twice, cut once. They always said it for a reason. And for next time, when I'm just cutting off my other arm with this nubbin of a limb that I mean, we've established my body sucks, so like I'm used to like adapting. Like I think I could do it. I think I could. I don't know how I went from like I couldn't survive to like, no, I'm pretty sure I could do it with one arm in like 30 seconds. Lastly, you guys are super fun and I love you. But so I as we've established, I used to live in the Vancouver, and I'm so sorry if someone here is from Vancouver. I actually don't even dislike Vancouver, Washington. I'm like, it's fine. Like, sure, why not? But recently I was going up there, I was driving, and there was this car accident, and everyone was fine. They were off on the sidelines. They don't have sidelines on a road. They were where the cars aren't. And thank you, they are sidelines. Yeah. Your best friend. Sorry, person who yelled, "You're beautiful" at me. It's over. But yeah, so these people, they were on the sidelines, and they were like laughing and having a fine time. They were fine. And what it was a Prius and another Prius and a Ford F-something 50. And then a boat down the way, like a big fishing boat. And what I should have thought when I saw that was like, oh, the Ford F, whatever the shit, was towing the boat. And then it hit the Priuses. Then it hit the Prii, and upon doing this, the boat separated from the Ford and became one with not the Ford. But that's not what I thought. what I thought was, oh my God, how is someone driving a boat down the freeway? And that's why I know I wouldn't survive that boulder. All right, you guys have been really fun. Have a good night.
And it's played. So, that was really good. In advance, I know I'm going to like it. So, obviously, your main thing is your show at the Fringe, the Berkshire Boar. Mm-hmm. But in terms of plugs, are there specific things you'd like to plug with that or other work?
Yeah, I mean, mostly we talked about Everett Flabbergasters. That being said, if anyone listening to this is interested in a stupid historical comedy, serialized historical comedy about a fictional old-timey baseball league, by all means, it's fun and stupid, and I'll start writing that again after the Fringe. I will, I mean, Timmy Booth and Andrew Frank, both of them. Andrew Frank's shows are Pastor and Monkey Sermon.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Other comedians, like, I'm really excited for Alex Kitson was the first stand-up I ever met in the UK, and his debut hours this year, and Louise Lee is also, I met on the same trip, and I'm really looking forward to seeing her show because she wasn't here last year. Otherwise, other stuff that I do, I don't know, join my... Like you said, I have a nice website. It has a mailing list.
It's genuinely the best, because obviously before all these, I look up the people I'm talking to. It's genuinely... I don't know why it's entranced me so much. It's just, I just kept thinking about how good a website it was.
People are going to go there and be like, wow, this must be an amazing website. It's just like kind of a well put together Squarespace.
Maybe it's more of a British comedian thing. I think it might be more American to know how to put together a website.
No, I don't know. I think I've seen lots of like shitty websites, so I know what you mean.
But yeah, so go check that out as well.
Yeah. I have Twitter and Instagram. I guess you could follow that if you want.
I've heard of that.
It makes me look good to people who might book me.
Yeah, definitely. And yes, I mean, it won't be out by the time this is out, but in the near future, I managed to wrangle you for another podcast of mine I do with a Welsh history YouTuber, which is going to be all about the Pig War specifically. And I'm excited to do that. Unfortunately, because it's not out yet, I can't be like, and you can go and listen right now. I have to kind of be like, and you can go and listen eventually, so just remember that it's happening.
Yeah, I like that.
But yeah, with that, I have been Patrick, as always. My guest has been Gabey Lucas. And yeah, goodbye, everyone.
See you next time.
Excellent.
We're about to go out in like 30 seconds. I feel like Zoom's going to kick us out.
I think... Thank you for making it all the way to the end of the show. Where can you find the show, you ask? Well, you can find it on Instagram at NeverIsFunny, all one word, all lowercase. The music used in the intro and outro is, as always, There It Is by Kevin MacLeod and Comptech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0, licensed creativecommons.org/licenses/by/4.0. The guest next week? Yeah, that's right. It's big-time musical comedian Sarah Hester Ross. See you then.